Thanks. All right, quick show of hands. Who here is a sports fan? Almost everybody, right? And I think we saw, yesterday afternoon there was a remarkable event which I think illustrated the power and passion of sports. Tiger Woods won a golf tournament, for the first time in 5 years, and it was like bedlam on the golf course. Normally the golf course is kind of a pretty low-key place, and there were hundreds of people pouring up the 18th hole with him. And the ratings, as George pointed out, were up for golf. So, that's the kind of thing that happens in sports, where people have an emotional connection, they see a story, and it just moves you. And if you're a Cubs fan, it moves you to be in first place. But the business is changing a lot, and we have some great folks here to have a discussion about how it's being reinvented and some of the people that are reinventing it. I'm going to start with you, George. You're a big sports guy. You're literally a big guy. You were a football player at Brown. You're from a football family.
Yes, yes.
Multiple generations of football
NFL players. Yep, that's right. I'm the only one that didn't make it. I'm the only one that didn't make it.
His son is committed to Notre Dame already as a junior quarterback. So congrats.
Thank you.
But he's had an incredible career so far. President of IMG Sports, before that the COO of NASCAR, and then 3.5 years ago you founded Bruin Sports Capital. And your thesis for founding Bruin had a lot to do with the changing landscape of sports. So I thought we could start with you explaining sort of what you saw when you started the company and, and what that vision was.
So everything we have done so far was to invest in the disruption in technology, how it's disrupted media. So we've invested in a global sports media and technology company. We've invested in experiential and live events because we think live events are going to become more valuable and less valuable. And we're investing in companies that are in social and digital media and in design. In fact, we have a fund where we've made 38 we have two funds, one Bruin and then another one Courtside, where we've made 38 investments in 25 companies in 24 months in the sports tech space. So we believe technology is changing the way people are going to consume sports, and our investments reflect that thesis.
And what gave you the confidence 3 years ago to say, okay, this whole thing is going to change and there's an opportunity here? There's obviously going to be some losers maybe if things change, but we can build a business that's going to thrive in this new environment.
We focused on a market leader. So our sports media and technology company operates in 5 continents, 11 countries, and it has been around for 30 years and started out in linear TV. Now it goes all the way to augmented and virtual reality, OTTs, web and app design. So we went with blue chip companies, and that kind of hedged our bets on the Bruin side, where it was more mature businesses.
So a couple of these companies that you've done a bunch of acquisitions, as you mentioned. A big one was Delta Tray, which is a global streaming service, right? You are involved in a company called Courtside Ventures, where you've invested with Dan Gilbert, the owner of the Cavaliers, which does it makes seed investments in a bunch of things, esports, drone racing, I think.
That's correct. That's correct.
And On Location Experiences is a business you took over from the NFL, a live experience business. So can you tell us how a couple of these work?
Yeah, so Delta Tray, again, really building right now a lot of direct-to-consumer media projects around the world. So they do an OTT network for the ATP Tour, an OTT network we're running for the NFL in Europe. So we're believing that direct-to-consumer was a growth category. We invested in that business. On-location experiences, on Super Bowl Sunday, we entertain 22,000 people. We do live events at the Masters, the Final Four, the Grand Slam in tennis. And I just think experiences that are unique and special are going to be more valuable as people consume content differently, and getting people to get out of their seats and go to something's more valuable. And then Courtside Ventures is really entrepreneurial. So we're investing in streaming companies, software companies, all kinds of different companies, all kinds of technology in sports. So everything we're doing is saying, hey, media is changing. Where are the financial opportunities? And try and take advantage of them. I have this old Wayne Gretzky, we're going to where the puck's going to be versus where the puck is, and everything we do reflects that.
Great. Connor, I want to start with some news. You guys made some news today, or announced some news. ESPN announced a partnership with Kevin Durant, the superstar player for the Golden State Warriors, with a new sports business show for ESPN+. So explain what that show is, what the thinking is behind that, what that deal is, and what is ESPN Plus? Let's explain to our audience here what that is.
So I'll start with the show. Kevin, like many other athletes now, is really thinking about creating his own content and thinking about what 35 Media, his company, can do to tell stories. And I started talking to him and his partner, Rich Kleiman, around the idea of how do athletes think about investing, how do they think about managing their personal brands, how do they take in all of the opportunities that are coming to them now and try and apply a filter to it and think about what they should be involved in and not. And that's a real transformation for so many athletes today, to be doing that while playing.
Right.
And so how do you manage that and think about it? And I think the conversations we had around that led us to the idea of Kevin and Rich actually taking people inside that experience, and the show's called The Boardroom, and thinking about really unlocking what it's like to sort of be in their shoes, and what are you thinking about, and where are you spending your time.
Yeah.
So I think it's really interesting. It's a show we're going to do for ESPN Plus, which is the over-the-top service that we launched within the ESPN app.
You launched that in April, correct?
We launched it in April. It's a complimentary product meant to serve the avid sports fan for $4.99 a month. There's a number of live events in there, and we're thinking a lot about how do we build out the content experience around those events, and this is one of 4 or 5 original shows we're doing that we're really proud of and think have a lot of audience possibility and upside.
So as I was telling you, I'm like your ideal consumer. I'm like a lifelong ESPN consumer. I get the cable package. I get the magazine. I have the fantasy app. I'm on your app every day. I'm like an advertisement for ESPN content. But not everyone is like me out there, and the world is changing, and so we have these new estimates on the number of cord-cutters that are cutting off their cable services are going up. It's estimated to reach 33 million this year. That's a lot of subscribers you're losing. These OTT services, the huge ones like Netflix and Amazon, they're reaching more and more people. And you mentioned ESPN Plus is a complementary product. It's not meant to be replacing ESPN. It's supposed to you're putting some content on there. But how do you think about, and your background is doing some really serious programming. You're executive producer of 30 Series, which just won a lot of awards for ESPN. And I should mention that he was an executive producer of the O.J. Made in America movie, which won an Academy Award, and I watched all 8 hours. So there you go. I'm like still.
Me too. It was great.
It was amazing. But how do you think about designing content for this sort of splintered way of distributing it, and where people are, just changing so quickly how they consume it?
So there's a lot in that question.
Yes.
Look, we start with and I don't mean this to sound sort of trite when I say it, we start with the basis of doing what we've always done, which is tell great stories and connect with fans, right? And I think across platforms, that holds true, right? So I believe the ESPN networks are still delivering tremendous value to the cable satellite system, and ESPN Plus, we've now added this complementary content offering, and then obviously across ESPN's digital products, the magazine, ESPN Radio, we're serving sports fans everywhere they are all day long. I think with this growing ecosystem comes incredible opportunity to think about formats, think about who we're working with, what stories we're telling, and how we're connecting with people. And I think that adds up to a growing level of engagement with our audience.
Debbie, you grew up with the traditional world of sports in the sense that your father's a longtime sports writer in San Francisco, like, the golden bygone era of sports coverage. until today. But so you're a lawyer, you've negotiated rights deals, you've been on that side of the table, and then you've built.
One against him.
Yeah, up against him at NASCAR, right? Or you were working together to get the best deal.
Building a partnership.
Exactly.
And then you've built this practice being an agent representing coaches and broadcasters. As you look at this fast-changing world, where do you see the disruption, and are you more worried, or are you more optimistic about the new opportunities that are going to be created?
I'd say overall I'm more optimistic, although the past, as Connor knows, the past year or two have been a little challenging. But it's going to be more about the personalities and the storytelling, and not just we're going to put on sports news at this time and people are going to turn in. You have to now provide content that's accessible when people want it. So whether that's OTT or on demand, or having Kevin Durant tell his story, or another thing they've done is they're having gambling shows on their OTT, and I have a former football player who's hosting that. I mean, there's just new sorts of opportunities for broadcasters and for former players. On the coaching and front office side, things are fairly similar.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I think that example of Kevin Durant as a current player developing a show, that seems to me to break the mold a little bit, or one example of breaking the mold of you were a player, and maybe you got some endorsements along the way, and then you sort of developed a career after your playing career. LeBron James has been a high-profile investor, and Kevin. And so, how do you advise clients on how to, adjust their career along the way in that?
Well, I think that's why Wasserman hired me 6 years ago, was to have athletes think about what they might want to do after, and if they want to go into investment banking or real estate, I can't help them. But if they want to go into broadcasting or coaching, or sometimes you go back and forth, and when you get fired from coaching, you go into broadcasting. And now front office, we can help them, we can prepare them. I mean, my advice is to get on social media while you're still playing and build your own brand. Especially for football players, it's hard because you're under the helmet and there's so many players, and the shield is the biggest thing. So get out there and show your personality and have the fans really know who you are. Don't give away any game secrets, but what they want to know is what happens when you're off the court, what happens when you're home with your family. So getting on Twitter and Instagram, and I actually have 2 meetings on Wednesday, one with a current athlete and one with a former NFL player, with a production company to launch shows around them. So, this is becoming the norm.
So I'm sure we're going to have some questions, which we'll get to in a second. I do want to ask about something that Matt mentioned in the intro, which is the Supreme Court decision to legalize sports betting, or to allow states to legalize it in their states. And we've already seen several states do it, and there's going to be more probably. And some people have said that is going to be actually a boost for audience engagement, because there's no one more tuned in the fourth quarter than the guy who's got $10,000 on the over-under in the fourth quarter. People are going to watch to the end and watch very intensely. But I'm just curious what all of you think about what that effect is going to be. How big of an effect is that going to have on ESPN viewership, or opportunities for you, and how's that going to change the?
I look at it 2 ways, like the show Connor's talking about with Kevin Durant. First of all, I don't think there are any more casual viewers. So I was struck a couple years ago at the Masters, had a 6-7 rating, which wasn't a very good rating in a playoff. And 10 years ago, if you're on your couch and the Masters are on and it's in the playoffs, I'm not a golf fan, I might watch it. Today, you're consuming what you want, when you want. Therefore, you're going to have to go after the avid consumer for a TV audience. So things that Connor was talking about is connecting more with that avid fan. So in the future, as things change, that connection with the avid fan is going to be critical for any sports property to be successful. Now in comes along gambling, and you're 19 times more likely to watch an event if you're betting on it, right? So the engagement of those people that are going to gamble is going to increase avidity. The last thing I would say, right now the second most gambled on sport in the world is tennis, which would be unbelievable. I was talking to the commissioner of the PGA Tour the other day. Think about golf, who has 78 players playing at any given time on a course. All of a sudden, golf becomes a lot more engaging to those that care about it. The betting opportunities are off the charts. So aside from the revenue stream that gambling is going to bring, I do think it's going to connect the avid fan. at a time where it is all about the avid fan, and there are not going to be a lot of casual fans, because the casual fan is going to be consuming content they like, not that they don't have a choice to watch.
Right. Are you developing betting content around this? Are you thinking about it? Or
So we're certainly thinking about it, and I think, you know, this isn't a totally new phenomenon, right? We've been, we've had content geared towards the sports gambler or in the betting space for going on quite some time now. I mean, we're looking clearly at new opportunities to be, let's say, to be more forward about it, right? And haven't really connected with anything specifically beyond the show that you mentioned that we're doing on ESPN Plus called I'll Take That Bet, which we're doing with a company called the Action Network. So yeah, I mean, I think I agree with what George said. This is just the beginning of exploring how this changes how you connect with sports fans and how you connect with the real avid and engaged sports fans.
Right. If we have any questions, raise your hand and we'll get you a paddle. We'll try to get to the questions. I
Can I add to the last conversation?
Yeah, sure.
The other area I think that's going to be really big is it's going to be for tech startups, because there's going to be a lot more need for the data and stats. And the NBA has actually already done a deal with MGM. So that's going to be an interesting area as well.
Right. So Connor, ESPN, the mag, just put an esports player on the cover named Ninja.
Yep.
He's got 10 million followers. He's a Fortnite streamer. I kind of know what that is. Not exactly. But how do you take that and plug it into your programming mind and think about, you know, what are you developing to deal with the phenomenon of esports?
So, I mean, that's about engaging our audience, right? And clearly gaming is not a fad, right? This is something that a lot of people are spending a lot of time with, both playing and consuming, right? Be that on Twitch or YouTube or
Unbelievable if you have a teenage boy. I mean,
it's
just
by the way, younger
unbelievable.
than teenage, right?
It's unbelievable.
And so Ninja, we put on the cover of ESPN the magazine. We did a E60 piece with him as well, and Ninja actually did a piece for in the pregame show of our first Monday Night Football game, where he was playing Fortnite with various football players. So that's about us telling stories around gaming and gamers. I mean, we also have entered a deal with Activision over the summer, where we started to broadcast the Overwatch finals, and League of Legends content is on ESPN Plus. So it's a space we're looking at, and I think you'll see us continuing to be active there.
And Debbie, are you building a esports practice? I mean, is that like a priority? Is the growth?
I'm actually not. I mean, I've looked at it, but it's very niche right now, and especially on the broadcasting side, it's not. There's not a lot of opportunities yet. I think there will be. We're actually looking more at the gambling side and representing either former players or Vegas people who have good personalities, because I think there's going to be a lot of opportunity there.
What about you, George? You're investing in esports, right?
Yeah, so we've invested in live streaming company. We've invested in a company that works with brands, and we've made a small investment in a team. Certainly, esports is global, has an incredible demo. It's very sticky. Finding the league that's going to be successful. The one tricky part about it is there's like 4 leagues. The publishers have a huge investment, and so we've kind of staying away from the team side, because even though we made a small investment, because I think there'll be big winners and losers, and I don't like places where there are big winners and losers and people with a lot of money at stake. But overall, it's very attractive.
I don't know if we have any questions out here. I can't see any. But one thing I wanted to ask you about was politics in sports, which has become a big topic. Colin Kaepernick, the Nike ad recently got a huge amount of attention, so it's crossing over into marketing. ESPN's gotten some criticism at times for being maybe too political in your programming, or from various sides. Is that a factor that's going to be here to stay in the sports business, or is this kind of a moment, do you think?
So I mean, I think politics and sports have always intersected, right?
Sure.
This goes back to Muhammad
Mexico
Ali,
Olympics.
yeah. John Carlos.
You might even say that in slightly positive, this year in Korea, I think the Olympics played a constructive role, where you had North and South Korea attending a sporting event that probably was helpful. So it has been going on, good and bad, for
That's
a while.
right. And you know, we intend to be the place of record. So we will cover events as they happen. You know, so I think that's.
I think the hard part for a sports league is take a league like the NFL when you have 200 million fans, 190 or 200 million fans, and we kind of have a divided country. When you get put in the middle of something, if you alienate 10 or 20% of your fan base, and it's 20 to 40 million Americans, it could have a negative impact on your business in terms of viewership, in terms of ticketing, whatever side of the aisle you look at. I mean, so that's the tricky part about it. I think that's been kind of amped up in a way. As Connor says, politics has always been part of sports for a long time. Sports is also reality TV, good and bad.
Right.
But I think what you've seen here now is, could it impact a fan base? And that's when it gets, I think, a little tricky. And I think what's a little bit different today.
And Debbie, how do you advise your clients, or how do you?
Wasserman actually is very supportive of letting our clients stand by what they think is right. And I actually have a client speaking at ESPN next week, where there's a panel on how active WNBA players have been. Mm-hmm. And I think we're actually one of the few agencies who tell people not to hide what they really feel like. And if they want to tweet about it, if they want to promote it, we'll stand by them. And if there's marketing implications, we'll deal with that when it happens.
Well, if there's one thing that's true about sports, it always elicits a lot of passion and enthusiasm, and that's not going to change, even though the programming and the business model is evolving. But thank you, George, Connor, and Debbie, for joining me here and for this conversation, and join me in thanking them.
Thank you.
Thank you.